Boom.
Okay, so this is the second in a series of two, but it is kind of standalone in itself as well. So if you didn't come to last month's workshop, don't fear. This is a standalone session in itself, but we're kind of doing them in batches. So it's sort of a series of steps in the kind of the research process and the co-design, co-development process. And we'll be sharing recordings and follow up from these workshops in the days afterwards. So don't worry if you feel like you've missed out. FOMO is real, but you will be kept in the loop. My name's Lisa Morgans. I'm a senior lecturer at the Royal Agricultural University, and I'm co-leading this programme with my colleague Emmanuel, who I think he's having technical problems actually, so I don't think he's on there just yet. But so if you've got any questions or queries about the wider programme or today, you can just ping us an email. And yes, it's a charitably funded programme. Kindly funded by the Rothschild Foundation, so we can offer this free to academics and researchers to upskill and equip you in working more effectively with the farming community and all that entails. But today we're going to be specifically talking about engaging farmers and growers in projects. Now, just for those of you who are new, maybe didn't come to the last couple of sessions, we're aiming to train about 200 plus researchers in working more effectively with farmers and growers. So it's quite a big ask, but we've been blown away actually by the interest. Nothing like free CPD, is there? But yeah, so we're going to try and we're delivering lots of different elements, which I'll talk about more in a second. So there's more deep dive options for those of you who want to immerse yourself in the skills and more light touch stuff. Who's it for? We're trying to make this as inclusive as possible. All types of researchers and academics from all backgrounds and disciplines, all levels of your careers, experience. And even if you're like part-time researching, advising and researching, you're still welcome to join in this programme. Slow computer. And just to re-emphasise, like I did last time really, but why farmer-centric, farm-led research, and why now? Well, not least because it's the right thing to do, and many of us on this call will think that because we're kind of advocates of working more inclusively. But it's the sort of substantial rationale is if we wanted to change practice, change people, then we need to include those people in what we do. And we all know farmers have great ideas, great expertise. No one knows a farm better than a farmer. The method I live by. But also a bit more of a practical point of view, particularly for the academics, seeking funding. A lot more of the funding calls now are asking for these more transdisciplinary approaches, involving stakeholders and multi-actors, because it creates real world impact. It actually avoids unintended consequences. It shapes the research so that it can actually be relevant to those on the ground that need to use it. So it's all aligning really, whether it's funding, whether it's policy. This is kind of the way the research world is going. As we say, farmers and growers here, quite a specific community, but some of the skills and teachings in this programme will also be relatable to other communities. So it's quite like a multi-actor approach. I showed this again last time. So we've gone from a very interdisciplinary research world where, you work with lots of different disciplines, but now we're seeing a lot more talk around this transdisciplinary. So going outside of the academic silos and bringing in people that could benefit from the research and all the research funding. So that's kind of the end scene, really. Yeah, just make sure you're muted. There we go, perfect. So how are we doing this? We did quite a lot of talking with researchers at the beginning of the year, lots of conversations with, do you want this sort of thing? What would you like? How would you like it to happen? And lots of people wanted sort of this deep dive, immersive stuff. So we're doing residencies and roadshow of events over the next 18 months. So you can really understand what's on the radar of farming and farmers today and how to best do farm-centric research. But there's also more light touch options, so like these online webinars, and we've got freely available repository of resources that we keep topping up. So you hear something that you thought, oh, that's actually quite cool, how do I engage with gatekeepers? You might want to go and look at a bit more of that. We want to talk to some of our speakers as well today. So that's hosted on Farm Pep. We'll share the links to that if you haven't already found it after the workshop. And we've also got a LinkedIn group, closed LinkedIn group that I encourage you to join, a really safe place where you can just be like, how on earth do I ask this question? Or who the hell do I need to speak to for this? That's a good place to do it. And we can connect you up with the relevant people to help you do your research. We've also got a really exciting thing about mentoring happening next year. Still in the development about how that's going to work, but a really deep dive farmer researcher working together for a week to immerse yourself in the realities of the farming calendar as much as you can in a week anyway. So many of you I know will be on the register of interest form, which is the place to sign up to hear about what's happening when. If not, sign that QR code. And then we use that master list to share all the details of what's happening when. But we'll share the links as well afterwards as well. But just some dates for your diary. If you're interested in this deep dive residency, we're hosting these at the Royal Ag Uni in the Cotswolds, pretty part of the world. And we've got 5 of them coming up until next autumn. And they're basically going to be a similar format of workshops with farmers and industry, field trips, training skill sessions, but we're going to cluster them roughly by themes. And this was based on what some of the people we spoke to at the beginning of the year kind of felt was needed, and the sort of interests of different academics. So this one coming up in August, where there's literally only a couple of spaces left, is on soils and regen, which is again based around the RAU. And then we've got more of a food system, bigger system stuff and storytelling in January. One focused particularly on livestock, animal-based ag. In March, a more plant-based one, crops and horticulture, June, July, which is, I know, not a great time of the year either, but trying to book spaces in the calendar is first lesson of trying to do co-design, co-production. And then one in September, more around sort of data and tech. But equally, we encourage you to go to one that's maybe outside of your comfort zone. And we're probably going to encourage you to just do one for the time being so that we can get as many people on these residencies as possible. But there might be the option to open it up as well. So more information about how to get on those will follow in coming weeks. But being on this programme, what we really hope will happen, intended learning outcomes, is you'll feel more confident as academics collaborating with farmers and growers in research projects. You'll be able to co-design studies and co-produce knowledge with farmers and growers. Okay, so going into these things, not knowing the answers and actually coming at it from a different angle by those on the ground who have the lived experience. And hopefully you'll experience a bit of a mindset shift when how you approach research and innovation, which I know the funders are starting to do as well. Like Innovate UK actually have gone through a bit of a learning process with the new Adopt Fund, which we talked about in the last workshop. So we're hoping we can spread that mindset shift amongst academia. Okay, so I'm just going to check if my colleague has managed to join.
I'm here, Lisa.
Yeah, perfect. Over to you.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. I'm Emmanuel Zuza and I'm also part of this team. And basically the aim of this workshop is to, first of all, provide practical tips for engaging farmers and growers in research projects, but also to hear the lived experiences of those that do it. And even like we have speakers, but if you also have lived experiences and you would like to share, please do feel free to share that. And the reason for that is because we want to foster mutual learning, so encouraging a two-way knowledge exchange. And also as part of this project, knowledge exchange between researchers and practitioners, and then with farmers. And basically the aim also is to bridge the research practice gap, so helping to translate academic research into real-world impacts by fostering stronger partnerships, which we'll get to know as we progress in today's workshop. But as well, apart from that, is to celebrate participatory approaches, so showcasing examples of farmers involved in research that have delivered value on the ground, but also what researchers did to ensure that they co-created their projects with farmers. And while doing that, you are promoting inclusivity and equitable research. Next slide, Lisa. So the first intended learning objective of this workshop is that participants, including us, because we are also participants, we are learning from you and you are also learning from us, is that we will be able to describe some of the best ways to engage with farmers in research projects. So how do you approach a farmer? Do you go in formally? Do you go in informally? And how do you get to do that in the different scenarios that will be shared today? Next slide, please. And then secondly, to feel more equipped to engage with farmers by co-designing research ideas and through the project pipeline. So there is one thing going to farmers and talking with them, but then taking it through, like going through with the farmers up until the end of the project. So the planned agenda is basically what we're doing now, which is the introduction and the warm-up, and then we'll have flash presentations from those working in the field. So we'll have 2 to 3 speakers who provide with us their experiences with working with farmers, co-creation, some of the challenges they have faced, some of the successes, and also if there are others who would like to share what they have done so as well, that is mostly welcome. And then we will have a break at 2, and then at 10 past 2, we'll have a Q&A, and then we'll have engaging farmers in research from an academic point of view. That would be Lisa, myself, and any other person who would like to contribute on their experiences. And then we'll have a discussion and later a conclusion, and possibly also show one of the videos that we took last time in the first workshop, where we were defining what farmer-led innovation looks like from different individuals. So that's the planned agenda. Over to you, Lisa.
Thanks, Manuel. Yeah, and you're very lucky today with the speakers. We've got Debs, who's head of soils, innovation for agriculture. This is her bread and butter, you know, bridging that science practice gap. And she's joined by Dave Miller, who I think gives a wave. Dave, who's a past soil farmer of the year and has, you know, excellent experience working in farming, but also now trying to engage with you lot, the academics. And then we'll be joined by Helen from the Scottish Agricultural Organisations Society. Is that? I always get that acronym round, but like excellent experience building partnerships between food supply chain, farming and research. And then we'll be finishing off with Andrew, who's been a long time working in the cooperative world, citizen science, farmer-led innovation. So you'll be treated today. That's what we like to say. So just before we kick off, a little reminder of our classic ground rules, keeping it real. There's like 40 odd of us on this call, so many different backgrounds, disciplines, coming from different walks of life. So just a reminder to show each other respect, empathy from different points of view, anything that surprises you, practice those active listening skills. But our little warm-up activity is going to just be, there's a two-phase activity actually. Because there's quite a lot of you, I'm just going to encourage you to put your name, role and where you're based in the chat. So we've got a nice record of that and you can see who's here quite easily. But I'm going to split you into kind of those who were here at the last workshop first. So if you were here at the last workshop, please put your digital hands up if you can. Always fun, this when the chat function doesn't work. Brilliant. That's quite a lot of you actually. Fab. And then I'm just going to go through that list as it came up on my computer, and I would like you to share kind of how the last workshop affected you or influenced you. Like what kind of did you learn and what you've taken away from it? It might have been nothing. You're welcome to say nothing. But anything that you kind of hit you last time. And I think the firstest with the digital hand was Luke.
Oh, yeah. No, last time was really just kind of, my big takeaway was just that reframing, just kind of making sure that at the top of my mind was how I structured that co-development relationship. You know, it's an active part of what I'm trying to achieve at the moment. So it's good to have other people's perspectives and opinions and talk through some scenarios, you know, in this sort of space. That really helps for my work outside.
Brilliant. Thanks, Luke. And well done going first. That's hard. Sophie.
Sorry, was that
Yes,
me?
sorry, Sophie Constant. Yeah, go for it.
I think one of the things I took away was kind of how much enthusiasm there is for co-design, which was quite nice. And just it kind of helped me feel a little bit more confident in talking about it, that maybe my ideas weren't like, I wasn't like howling at the moon on my own, which was quite a nice feeling. And then kind of practically, I had my first supervisory meeting for my PhD, so I was able to kind of talk really fluently about it. So that's something I definitely gained from going to the last workshop.
Amazing. Thanks, Sophie. Rosemary?
Hi. I think for me, it was some of the sort of practical skills and concepts that came through from the last one that I found really valuable. And I think you mentioned it earlier, which possibly jogged my mind, but this concept of identifying the right people and working through gatekeepers and how important that was. And that's something that's come through in a few conversations and meetings and discussions I've had subsequently as well. So that sort of tools for engaging and reaching the right people and how to start doing that. I think that was something I found very useful.
Amazing, thank you. Tracy?
Hi, yeah, gatekeeper thing. I think just realizing how my role is very much a gatekeeper and where that fits in, and also sort of a little bit of talk of, I think we all agree that it needs to be farmer led, and farmers very much need to be part of it, but that they still need that support. And, although we're asking them for ideas, they sort of need some support with that as well, still ongoing.
Yeah, really nice point. Alexander? Oh, I don't think we can hear you.
Alexander, we can't hear you.
But we'll come back to you if you work out your, come back to you. Iffy?
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you very much. After the workshop last time, I got a lot of confidence because I conducted a stakeholder co-creation with farmers last year, and I really do not know how to go about, how to use it. But from the workshop, I got a lot of confidence on how the direction I could use the data and the kind of possibility I have right now. Thank you.
Amazing, good to hear. Layla?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, so I think for me, I think some of the others have touched on this as well. I've also just recently started a PhD and I'm going to be co-designing, and I'm relatively new to the world of co-design. So it was just fabulous to see so many other people doing it and hear from people at different stages in that process, and just to feel, I guess, a sense of community, in that there are people out there, and this especially as in somewhere to come to draw inspiration from and kind of bounce those ideas around and just get some top tips, I guess. Yeah.
Brilliant, good to hear, Layla. Peter?
Hey, I think very similar as well. Sorry, I start probably to sound a bit repetitive, but very much learning about other people also working with farmers in a sort of participatory way, being interested, and that sort of what Layla was saying, sense of community was quite good. Sort of bounce ideas and things like that. So yeah.
Fantastic. And then come back to Alexander. Is your sound?
I'm not sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Okay. A very practical thing. Just I'm from Arts and Humanities, so AHRC funding usually. So it's just really useful to see what the range of funding is out there for these kind of projects.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I've seen loads of people have introduced themselves in the chat. We've got a truly brilliant mixture of disciplines and roles and things, so do check that out, and we will make sure everyone stays connected. So those of you, this is the first workshop, but stick your hand up if you'd like to share what you're hoping to get out of it, really, or what you're hoping to learn or do from this program. So go on, Marilla.
Hi, yeah, my name is Marilla. I'm a project manager at Anglia Ruskin University. I'm working on a almost 3-year research project looking at the entire food system and how we can make it more resilient to the sort of multiple shocks and challenges that are facing it, and that will involve workshops and liaising with farmers, as well as many other actors throughout the entirety of the food system. I've already learned something today, which is that transdisciplinary means that we're working with non-academics, which we are, so I can now use that term to describe the project. And my experience of being sent to engage farmers informally was being sent to the Highland Show in Scotland for 2 days on a work trip and just going around talking to people and taking notes when they weren't looking. So far, but we also have gatekeepers we're working with.
Amazing. Well, not only have you got a massive task tackling the whole food system, but brilliant first step, going to shows. You like absolutely a brilliant immersive experiences. So thank you. Paul.
I'm willing if anyone wants to fund me to go to the Highland Show for 2 days next year. I sort of fell into this from the other end, really, from where most people are talking about. I'm a sheep farmer, I'm a vet based in Northern Ireland. We realised we had an escalating problem with sheep scab and nobody was doing anything about it. Nobody was talking about it. There was no literature about it. Sheep scab, as far as Northern Ireland was concerned, only existed on the statute books. It was a notifiable disease and it is present in Northern Ireland as much as had been written for 20 years. So we had to go out and find money and do research and get partners. So I've come at it from the other direction and looking to learn any tips everyone has as much about how approaching academics.
Okay.
As learning, as working the other way, because coming from my side, I find it strange that people try and go out and impose their thoughts on farmers, which I can see quite clearly happens all the time, and it happens in every other sector. But yeah, coming from my side, I just think, well, there's plenty of questions out here. If anyone would just shut their mouth long enough and listen to us, we've got plenty of ideas.
Fantastic, thanks, Paul. And it's the two-way, bridging the gap, isn't it? Brilliant, thanks, Paul. Next hand was Caris. Hello, Caris.
Hi, I was looking to just kind of network with other people. I'm kind of started in the beginning of study and looking to kind of do QI side of things at the moment, but looking to do a bit more in terms of research. Mine is from a health perspective, but it's for farmers and the inequalities that farmers face in healthcare. And how we can reduce them. I'm hoping to make a kind of replicable system that can be used not just within county but out of county and properly from John O'Groats to Land's End, because it's the same issues wherever you are farming. And farmers are telling me that, and there's in and out of county, and I spent a lot of time at the livestock market and speaking to different farmers that are also out of county. So yeah, it's great. It's provided lots of insight, and as Paul just said, we think about all the things, and it's not until someone says something that you think, I hadn't actually considered that, because you're not necessarily doing that job, day in, day out, and it's just small things that really could make a difference, and we can change it. So hopefully to change healthcare for farmers is the goal. But yeah, just to connect with people that are working with farmers. So thank you.
Yeah, it's really nice to have the healthcare angle, actually, because it's often tucked away and not embedded in the wider thing. Brilliant. Kevin, you were next. Yeah.
Hello, hi Lucy. Yes, I'm doing some research through Aberystwyth on risk and resilience and opportunities for upland hill and beef and sheep farmers in the Yorkshire Dales. And some of you might recognise that picture behind me as Swaledale, maybe, if you know that area, near Reeth, up that area. I plan to talk to approximately 25 farmers about their perceptions. I started a couple of months ago. Anyway, I've got to 18. I've done 18 so far. So I've got a few left to go, but I'm just here to pick up any tips, really.
And
other
Found
people
it-
that are doing it.
Yeah. You found it quite straightforward so far, or you found it challenging?
Well, it has been quite straightforward, but I've probably got a bit of a better in than some people because I started up. Well, I know quite a few of them to start with, and I was sort of able to snowball it into there. But 18 seems to have been a bit of a ceiling, so I'm struggling with the last few.
Well, I hope we will give you some tips, but that you've hit a nail on the head there with the rapport, the relationships, having those really helps. Yeah, fantastic.
And I mean, there's various ways I've been doing it, but actually Facebook's been invaluable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. Thanks, Kevin. And Luke, oh, you've got another hand up. Yes, go for it. Oh, don't forget you're muted. Classic.
Sorry, I put my hand down, but didn't chase you. Yeah, no, actually, I put my hand up because Paul said something that chimed with me. So I was completely on the other end. I'm academic research, 10 years of research experience, learnt to communicate in that world. In robotics, never touched agriculture. So I've got a void of communication skills that I've got to bridge to be able to talk to farmers without coming across like I'm trying to tell them how to do their job, or or I want to work with them and help them solve their problems. So for me, this is all about learning how to like reset my communication style and habit to better suit that relationship rather than the more academic to academic deep tech relationship that I've had in the past. So
Yeah, really nice, honest sharing, actually. I think you're not alone in the agri-tech world, actually, with people having to have a steep learning curve. So you'll be particularly interested in maybe the communication elements workshops that we'll do this program. Is there any time, a couple of minutes more for anyone who wants to share what they want to get out of this or what they're doing and their experiences before we hand over to our speakers? Oh, go on, Carol. Yes.
You're muted, Carol.
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted now. Yeah, so I work at the James Hutton Institute. I've been there since God was a boy, probably. But I'm very much involved now with livestock farmers and done a lot of workshops and focus groups and interviews and things over the past. So I've got a fair bit of experience, but I think you can always learn something new. We've recently tried to engage farmers in some blue tongue virus workshops on the borders, but have failed fairly dramatically despite sending out something in the region of 200 invitations, flyers, all the rest of it. I think it's just the wrong time of year. End of July, not a good time for farmers. So that's what I'm thinking about. When's a good time for farmers? And also, Paul, sorry, just while I get the chance, we did quite a lot of work with Sheep Scab on Lewis and Harris. I don't know if you've seen that work. If you're interested, I can send it to you if you'd like. Engaging with islanders who also had a similar problem. It wasn't there. Oh, suddenly it was. So I can, but yeah, that's where I'm coming from. Can also.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Carol. That's really good because we've had so much engagement from like early career researchers and those starting out on PhDs, and we're like, but it's for everybody. And yeah, we'll come back to the disease one. I think our speakers might refer to the timeline stuff as well. So thank you for all your contributions. And we'll get a bit more discussion going towards the later on. So now our first up speakers are Debs and David, who are going to do sort of a conversational double act. So if you pop up on our screen, gosh, I've lost where you are.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here, perfect. Right, well, over to you guys, really. You can introduce yourselves and take to the floor.
Thanks very much, Lisa. So yeah, as Lisa said, I'm Deborah Crossan, working for Innovation for Agriculture, which is part of the Royal Agricultural Society for ease of description, and I head up the Soils and Natural Resources team, have done for a while. I think I'll just explain a little bit what IFA does, and that is we work with and try to identify and promote the farmers who are making changes and challenging the barriers within the industry, and hopefully link those farmers towards researchers and try and also engage them in EU and academic projects where possible. Some of the work that we do is we conduct surveys or interviews. Sometimes we've got access and we try to be a trusted friend to the industry, both to academics and to farmers, and try and sensitively do some of that work. But we run events with farmers, we get farmers to host, and we invite farmers to be guest speakers, study tours, EU projects, etc. I'll hand over to David, who's a farmer I've worked with for quite a while, just to introduce himself and his interest in this subject.
Yeah, thank you, Debs, and thank you, Lisa. Yeah, my name's David Miller. I'm a recently retired farm manager, having spent 50 years working on farms. We've done a lot of trials work within our own business. We've also done trials work along with the HDB, NIAB. Yeah, lots of different people looking at lots of different things. We were a strategic farm for the HDB, so we had quite a lot of trials going on the farm. Yeah, so it's in my early retirement, I'm looking to become a researcher. So, and part of that is looking at nutrient density of crops. So, yeah, I'll leave it on there. Over back to you, Debs.
Thanks, David. So Lisa asked if we'd give a hand today, and we said we would. I gave David a quick brief, and we've had a quick chat, because I know we usually agree about, hopefully we usually agree about how to encourage farmers to do things. And we both put together some ideas, and luckily we're on the same page. So I'll kick off with a really easy one, which wasn't on our page. When to contact farmers. They're not 9 to 5, and it can be nerve-wracking, and I hope David will agree with me. What I put on my list is Friday morning, not during harvest, after dark, or when it's raining.
Yeah, I think I'd probably pretty much agree with that. I think it's just when you look at every discipline within farm, and it's there are good times and bad times to talk to people, and it's just having a bit of an idea. And if you don't get an answer, then that's probably because you've tried to talk to them at the bad time.
Next on our list was around remuneration. No, I can't say it. Remuneration.
Yeah, I think we put this one on there. I think we've done a lot of trials work ourselves, which hasn't had any financial incentive for us to help, which decreases the value that we put on that trials work. You know, it's great to feel as if you're getting something back, apart from hopefully getting some data back at the end of it as to what they found out. And this has come up in through the research we're trying to do now. We've applied for an Adopt grant, and there's nothing in the Adopt grant for income foregone for any of the farmers. So it's yeah, I think that's a glaring error on the Adopt part.
I think 10 years ago we were sometimes asking the same farmers to do things and turning up with a bottle of not especially marvelous wine. And I think we have to be aware a lot of farmers are soul working, and if you ask them off the farm or ask them to do something else, something has to give, or someone's got to cover that job role, and that's a business, and that costs money. So the next one, keeping everyone informed, keeping farmers informed what's happening with the project. And I think David's got some views on that area as well.
Yeah, I mean, farms are pretty quiet places most of the time, so it's always a bit disturbing when we see various vehicles driving about that we don't know are going to be there, people wandering about through fields. It's very simple these days to just communicate, and whether it's a WhatsApp message or whatever else, just to let somebody know that there'll be somebody on the farm give them a registration number, rough idea of what they're doing, and yeah, everybody's happy then. And then if somebody rings up and says, "Oh, you've got a red car up the other end of the farm, what's that doing?" Yeah, no, it's fine. We expect that one. So yeah, it's just good manners, really. If you're going to go into somebody's back garden, you tend to knock on the garden gate, which is exactly the same as what we're trying to do. So yeah. Shall I carry on with another one, Debs?
Yes, David, go for it.
Yeah, I think some of this has been covered with the conversations before this, but the research it's quite important as a researcher to try and identify farmers that are actually going to get a benefit out of this research, because they will be much better at helping, giving an opinion, all sorts of different backup that they can give. If you just go onto any farm and say, "I want to do this trial," the farmer doesn't think it's going to work, then it won't work. So yeah, that's quite an important one.
I think Lisa will love it if we say farmer-led, bottom-up. She's her two favourite phrases.
Yeah, that's been with the work we've done with the AHDB and with IFA as well. It's very much if a farmer comes along to an event and sees another farmer doing something and has been a success, hopefully, they're much more likely to go away and try and do that themselves and take on board what's going on. I mean, the background of a lot of our research was we were a very early adopter of regenerative agriculture in sort of 2010. So we've been through all of the bad stuff. We got through to the good stuff, and we were getting a lot of interest from other people just to come and see what their farms could aspire to do as well. So yeah, farmer led and farmer as a mouthpiece a lot of the time as well. I don't know if there still seems to be a void with a lot of people between academic and the actual farmers.
Thanks, David. We talked a little bit about projects which just give a commercial gain to suppliers, and this is a little bit of a tentative area because there's a lot of startups now, and how much we can help startups and how relevant the startups are. So I think that's why we're getting this rush of more requests, really, and still trying to be relevant, answering a question or a problem that's actually there. Just worth giving that a bit of thought as to how that works for the farmer and for the startups.
I think that can be included in the first one with the word that you couldn't say, Deborah, remuneration.
Yeah. So good.
I think if it's got a much more commercial background to it, and somebody's going to be selling products or machines or whatever at the end of it, there should be a bit more of a bigger remuneration at the beginning.
Perfect. We also talked about team building. If the research is going across various farms, how to build that into a team was a point that David came up with.
Yeah, quite often you'll have farmers. If you go to one farmer and then ask them to find another 3 or 4 farmers, you'll probably find 3 or 4 better farmers than you would do if you just went along and picked them all out yourself. Like-minded people, I could name half a dozen farmers around me that I wouldn't go and ask, not for personal reasons or anything, but from a business point of view, they have very different ideas about what they want their farms to do. But likewise, there's a good half a dozen people that you would go along with an idea, and which is what we've done for our Adopt grant.
I think that's the extent of what we've come up with, but we can discuss later in the Q&A if that's been helpful.
Oh, that's been fantastic, both of you. The chat's pinging off, so you might want to be looking at that as we carry on to our next speaker. So people in the audience, jot down your questions and thoughts, put them in the chat if you want, and we'll come back to that in the Q&A session. But spot on, Debs and David, brilliant. Right, so now we're on to Helen, and I am on screen share, aren't I? So hang on, give me 2 seconds. screen.
Yeah, that's great. I'll let you load up my slides, and I'll just go for it then.
Go for
Great.
it, yes.
Thank you so much for inviting SCOS to share our experience in farmer engagement via the Agri Co-ops. So as the slide says, I'm Head of Supply Chain Innovation at SCOS, and SCOS has been taking an active role in shaping the future of farming and food in Scotland for over 120 years. I haven't been there such a long time, but we're very much a co-op constituted business. So we're owned by our 60 odd member co-ops, farming co-ops that cover agriculture, forestry, aquaculture, and we're dominated by the co-ops that are based in Scotland, but increasingly we have membership in down south in England. My colleagues and I are all experts on farming cooperatives and supply chain collaboration. And what I wanted to share with you today is just sow the seed in your minds about accessing farmers via agri co-ops. And I'll tell you a little bit about the advantages of doing that. And what we've done is we've got this slide deck, which will be shared with you, but we've submitted to Lisa another slide deck that gives you more background to what co-ops are for those who perhaps are less familiar. And doing your homework is going to be really key to get the attention of the co-op and their farmer members as well. So hopefully you'll learn a little bit. And of course, please do use the email at the end of this presentation to get more information. And there's also a QR code for you to connect with us as well. I assure you that I submitted my slides yesterday. So some of the tips that we're going to share with you have already been spoken about already in this webinar. I haven't been busy changing my slides. And I just thought what Deborah and David were saying echoed so much with what we are going to say as well. But if we can get the next slide, and what is a co-op? And I'm just very briefly going to just whiz through some things for you to think about. So a co-op is a way of doing business. It's a business with a particular ethical code, and it has a set of 7 principles. These are in the other slide deck. And co-ops have a track record in being innovative farming organisations. They have multiple bottom lines. So that's really important to think about in terms of people, as well as income and turnover. And they're there to draw back value back to the farmers for what they do in a supply chain. You may have seen on the BBC News yesterday, mergers of agri co-ops are now taking place in Scotland. So it's really interesting. And co-ops are governed not by articles of association, but governed by rules. And this slide just gives you some key insight into co-ops are owned by their members for their members. They're not for profit. They're about taking value back to their farmer members. And co-ops are not paying back to stakeholders. It's the farmer members themselves. And what do you get from working with a co-op? Well, by engaging with co-ops, you have the opportunity to have one port of access, but like a gatekeeper, like SCOS is, to many farmer members of a particular co-op in a particular sector. So you're engaging with a manager who's acting on behalf of their farmer members. You're also working with a farming organisation that has got routes to market, an onward supply chain. So what you're doing as researchers may inform a change of practice that may be relevant, that should be relevant to the future fit and resilience of that supply chain, but to those that they're selling on to. Co-ops are very market orientated, although we will talk about some of our other co-ops as well. So do look at the other slide deck for more information about co-ops themselves if you're not so familiar. If we just go to the next slide, Lisa, and what we're going to do is just whiz on to the next one. this is a lovely illustration of our co-ops working across a wide variety of sectors: livestock, arable, we've got one aquaculture co-op, we have Scottish Agronomy, the Scottish Pig Producers Association. So that just gives you a flavour of the range of our co-op members. So the next slide just gives you an illustration of who they are. They represent all different sectors, and collectively they have 24,000 farmer members. That's the potential of your reach. Of course, that's across all the co-ops, and collectively they have a turnover of 1.5 billion. And in the other slide deck gives you some other fascinating figures about co-ops themselves. So we have marketing co-ops, we have the machinery rings, we have buying groups. So it's a really interesting range of sectors and co-ops that you can access through ourselves as gatekeepers. So if we just go to the next slide, what I really wanted to focus on today was, well, how do we interact with researchers, academic, technology-based SMEs, etc. So back in 2021, we launched the Cultivating Collaboration Network, and it was our way of engaging with other sectors, with academics, with other stakeholders around new thinking, bringing new thinking and partnerships to prioritised co-op challenges. And these photos are just a selection of how we do that outreach and engagement. Someone actually talked about food and workshops, and the photo in the top right is just one example around our green hydrogen topic, where we brought a selection of farmers and other stakeholders together on a farm visit. And that's a fabulous way of researchers to talk to farmers, but also policymakers as well. On the top left is one of our Come and Meet the Co-op days. And my colleague Patty, who's also on this call, was instrumental in delivering with James Hutton on this occasion, a selection of our partners to come and meet the co-ops, hear from a variety of them, and build that engagement relationship with them. So again, we run these at different times in the year, and it's an excellent way to build the relationship, because something that comes up again is you need to have trusted relationships, whether it's with your farmer or your co-op, for them to want to work with you. And we work cross-sector. And the bottom left-hand side is just an example of how we engage with the space sector, downstream space sector, SMEs, whether they be based in Scotland or down in England. We go out and we say, these are the challenges that we have, and we think that your technology and your innovators could bring new thinking to address these. And I have to say that we don't just do these as topics, we deliver, whether it's delivering a leadership report, whether it's doing R&D collaborative project proposals, and yes, we do that quite successfully. And the bottom right is very much in agriculture, as you know, farm demonstration projects, monitor farms, etc. Actually being in the field and bringing people together, seeing what a particular new practice or a technology can do, that is so, so important. So the takeaways from here is think about informing through webinars, special interest groups, develop that relationship. Now, at present, our themes for C2N have been around green hydrogen, the use of space data. We've just completed a very successful waste valorization theme as well. And now we're starting to think about artificial intelligence and how that can come to play. And it's bringing that new thinking from you, the researchers, across the research base. And if you go to the next slide, some of our top tips, I think you've heard of some of them already in this webinar. Engagement is a journey. And I'm glad to hear that this programme is going to be more than just the webinars. You've got a period of time in which to learn new skills and talk with each other. I think this is a great way. And these top tips will be, the sort of skill sets that you already have or you want to develop. And it's a very much about investing in these trusted relationships. do your homework first. Find out what co-ops are all about, how they're managed, what the business model is, why would they want to hear from you, and we can help you with that. How does your new thinking address a market-driven challenge for a farmer? So somebody's already said, make sure that you're researching something or you're developing a technology or a solution that has relevance to the farmer and their supply chain. Using trusted intermediaries is so important because we can be the gatekeepers. We will task you with some questions. We won't just, yeah, that's fine, we'll share it with all our membership. We have a duty of care to our members. We have to make sure that what we present to them is robust and relevant and trustworthy. And I think always that last point about farmer-led innovation is so important as well. But sometimes you actually have to say, this is what we're doing at RAU, or what we're doing at Nottingham. Think about what you're bringing to that farmer, not just for your project, but for your colleagues that are around you. And if we go to the next slide, Lisa, sparking these conversations are so important. We've already looked at some of them already. What is your time scale for getting a reply from one of our co-ops? What's the level of commitment you're looking for? What are you trying to solve? The calendar, so important. Farmers and co-ops are very busy people most of the year. Sometimes they're more intense at work. So we can help you through that minefield. Take a long-term view. And the other thing is, they're about adding value, because we want to add value to our farming co-ops and their farming members. Think about what value you're bringing to them. And a great top tip here, and we've been using this year, is when an academic approaches us, we're asking them to give us a 30-second, 45-second video. And it worked. We got more engagement from our co-ops when an academic gave a technology entrepreneur 45 seconds. This is what I've got. This is what it can do for you. Can I speak to you? What a great way for an introduction. It's worth more than 1,000 words. Online webinar, come to the Royal Highland Show. Yeah, we've heard that one before. Can't stress that hard enough. What a fabulous way to engage with the sector. So if we move on, Lisa, to our final slides, we're not going to play these videos, but there are 2 videos that will help you to understand what co-ops are about, what they're set to achieve. They're all about cooperation and collaboration across the supply chain. And you can find out if you join our YouTube channel. There's lots of videos there and little camera shots, video shots of talking to some of the partners that we've already engaged with. And my final slide is one where you've got your QR code. So cameras out and scan our QR code and connect with us on our LinkedIn Cultivating Collaboration Network. Patty and I can accept your request to join as it happens, but that's a really good way to start seeing what we're doing at C2N and how we want to make farming fit for the future, not just in Scotland, but across the UK and across our supply chains. There's my email address. More than happy for anyone here in this community to contact us and talk about the possibilities and what you bring to farming. So that's all I wanted to say at this point.
Thank you so much,
2
Helen.
presentations. Let's have the discussion. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And like Helen said, we will get these shared with you. Actually hinted at a few really good ways you can answer some of your questions in the chat. So we'll come back to that after the break. But our final speaker today is Andrew, who's probably going to segue quite nicely following yours, Helen, actually. So I'll have to stop sharing my screen. Yeah. So Andrew, over to you.
Thank you so much. Can you see my screen?
We can. It's not in presenter mode yet, but we can see.
How's that?
Something. Oh, perfect. Over to you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. And just a little bit of background. So this is a talk that's going to focus on climate smart macadamia agroforestry, and as a follow-on to Helen, working with the Highlands Macadamia Cooperative Union in Malawi, and 2 organizations that I chair, the Nana Macadamia Trust and managing director of Nutsellers. And again, picking up on what Helen was saying, this is very much about development through trade, but looking at specific value chains and identifying opportunities to learn and to secure research activities. For those of you who don't know, Malawi is at the bottom end of the Great Rift Valley, and the macadamia is grown in those areas of Malawi that are green, they're high. Rule of thumb, 1,000 millimeters and 1,000 meters in that part of the world. So a lot of rain and quite high. So similar to coffee. And who are we working with? So these are farmers in districts around Malawi, primary level cooperatives, organized under a cooperative union, Highland Macadamia Cooperative Union. A relatively young organization, and we're introducing an agroforestry system. That circle shows a field with a few trees, allowing for interplanting. But in that landscape, there's significant opportunity to introduce macadamia as an agroforestry crop, but huge challenges too. In terms of partners and stakeholders, we've been at this for quite a long time now, and I think you need to think about the wide range of stakeholders who are available to you. And we've been talking about the farmers and the co-ops, but how they then link across to governments, donors, the universities and students in particular. Great resource for those who are developing programs. Over the years, I've co-supervised nearly a dozen master's students who are able to really focus in on key issues. And there's a wide range of other organisations who've come alongside us in this work. From the farmers' perspective, the farmers are interested in macadamia from their income perspective. It's a high value nut product. But I think when you're looking at farming, there's often unintended consequences. So what we've found over the years is that the farmers are eating the macadamia. And so there's some research questions around that. If it is high value, why? And partly it's because the nut comes off the tree at a time of the year when farmers are food insecure. But also, largely the women farmers are recognizing it as a useful contribution to a maize-based diet. So there's health issues that you can start to look at here. From an environmental point of view, we're very interested in the impact of climate change, but how do the trees complement other crops and the soil protection opportunities? We're currently doing a piece of work with Open University, which Emmanuel is helping us with. And these are some of the interviews with farmers. Now, we've been doing this work for quite a long time, and we use terms that maybe the farmers wouldn't use: climate smart macadamia agroforestry, regenerative agriculture. But these are the lived experiences of those farmers. We're seeing more intense dry spells during critical growth periods. The rainy season now starts later, etc. But the farmers that were interviewed, the vast majority recognize that this agroforestry system is more resilient. But many of those farmers didn't have the resource or mechanisms to start. So there's some work to do around how you incentivize farmers to make change. And just talking of change, the landscape on the left there, fairly bare. It's a maize-based farming system, and the farmers face a number of challenges. food, nutrition, and income shocks, climate shocks, flood and drought, deforestation, and degraded soils. It is a rain-fed farming system. Market access is the problem. In the bottom of this slide, Malawi's been hit by 3 cyclones and 2 droughts in 4 years. And the digital thermometer shows the temperature of the soil below the tree and in the bare soil in October. Now, in UK, we've had and are having heat waves. But if you've got soils that are 50 degrees or more, you're not going to be able to grow anything. There's some really interesting work that starts to emerge here in terms of what impact does changes in soil temperature and the environment have on the intercrops. This work, I think, Helen, you touched on the fact that this is about building trust. So here we have a survey done in 2013, and this is the age of the trees that were surveyed. But what we found was that tree death changed over time, and what we were able to see was a pattern relating to El Nino. But we, as outsiders to the farming community, made some assumptions. We thought fire was a major problem. But actually what we found was 75% of deaths were due to termites. Now, what was really interesting when we went and spoke to farmers about termites was what was the best way to control termites? And one of the farmers said, urine. Now, that was not what I expected. And he said, and in particular, the urine from the middle of the night where it's most concentrated. Now, I've done some reading around, and urine has urea, which attracts ants. It wasn't necessarily preventing the ants from eating the trees, but the ants were looking for moisture and urea. So the most unexpected insights do come from farmers if you ask the right questions. We've been working on a number of value chains. So I mentioned development through trade, and the fact that the farmers find it quite difficult to afford to plant trees. So we've been piloting with Imperial College a carbon damage mitigation system. And when we started, we thought we would get certified by an internationally accredited organization. Often when you do this work, the resources are much more expensive than the funding available. And we did go farmer first with this. So the last 6 years, we've been working with the farmers who've been collecting their own data on mobile phones, and we've subsequently been able to share that data with students at the Open University. And we're now at the point where we can scale up for accreditation under Plan Vivo. And we're also working on the macadamia nut value chain on a co-op-to-co-op support program between Central Co-op UK and Malawi Co-ops in Malawi. So, as I say, this is development through trade. It's adaptive research. So every season you can expect something different. The farmers see different things. You need to be able to adapt your program. Do not be too rigid in your approach, and it takes time. So this is the journey that we've been on. It goes back to the 1950s. I won't go through all of the detail because we haven't got enough time, but I think, as with farming, the research with farmers is a patient one, and I think I'll leave it with that and Zikomo, as they say in Malawi.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Andrew. And it's just so telling that you can have a global perspective, that some of the challenges, struggles, particularly now with weather, can be the same. Really nice message there. You don't know what you might get when you actually ask the right questions. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Now, there's been loads of activity on the chat, and I'm sure you've got lots of questions, but I do want to give you all a quick 5-minute leg stretch to just, get the blood flowing again, have a quick toilet break, refreshment. So if we can come back at 10 past, sorry, I cut a bit short, and then we'll have a nice good 10-15 minutes to ask your questions of the speakers, okay? So yeah, quick break. I'll just actually put the break screen on. Stay on the call, but just turn your mics off. And speakers, yes, stay. You can have a break as well, but come back. Okay, let's make make a start so we get you all finished on time. I'll just stop sharing. Thanks. Hopefully everyone's had a rushed break. But we've only got 50 minutes or so left. So we're going to start with the questions and answers for our speakers. And someone's got in there quick. Neve's got in there quick in the chat. So I'm going to hand this over to Andrew and David first. But this was about asking the right question. I don't know if Neve is back yet, but does anyone else have any advice on how to ask the right question? And to getting those, rich insights to, shape the direction of research, make sure you're doing the right thing that's of value. So, Andrew, any thoughts?
Well, you work with a good researcher like Emmanuel. That's a good starting point. So, but it does take time to actually think through what you're trying to achieve, and setting up the questionnaire in such a way that you give farmers options. And we're fortunate in that we work with quite a large number of farmers, so we can get a good representation of the farmer base. So, but where you've only got 18 farmers, I think, was it Kevin, struggling to get the full number that he wants. Yeah, it's more tricky.
David, do you want to add anything in?
Yeah, I think sometimes it is how a question is asked as to what answer a farmer is going to give. I've always found that if you're desperate for a farmer to do something, tell them that it can't be done, and then they'll do it, because that's their mentality, I'm afraid.
It's great.
It's a difficult one to answer, really. I mean, it must be the way a question is asked as to what a farmer will always try and, they can be a politician, they can always try and talk about the things they know, rather than to try and answer something they don't know.
Yeah.
But I think in the comment, they give you the answer that they want to give to the question that they want. Sometimes you get farmers who want to give you the answer that they think you want to hear, which is the flip side. And so you do have to structure your questions quite carefully.
Yeah, response bias. Yeah, and I think just diving in there as a chair privilege, but this is where the open questions, the structure of an open question is so important. So instead of being like, I'll use a very vetty one, but why do you not use pain relief for your lame cows? It's very suggestive. It's technically open, but there's a lot of agenda in there about like, well, the person asking the question is thinking you should use pain relief, whereas you could ask, tell me, how do you approach dealing with a lame cow? For instance, and you're going to get, from a qualitative researcher point of view, you're going to get much more richer data. Actually, you don't go in assuming you know what they're going to tell you, or you should. And that's kind of what Andrew, you were saying. You were expecting fires, and you got termites, which I thought was fun. Great. We've got some hands up. I don't know if these are new questions or what, but Mary, go for it.
I mean,
thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Stick to the order, Emmanuel. Go on, Marilla.
I guess there's different kind of research you can do with farmers, and a few of the speakers sounded like they were coming from an R&D background where farmers might be involved in trials and things like that. I'm coming more from a sort of social science and policy perspective, and in those kind of cases where if a farmer's involved in a trial, it might be directly beneficial to them. But if you're asking them to take their time out to contribute to something more abstract and long term, is there any advice of how to get farmers on board with that? And not just the one, and a variety of farmers, including the type who usually wouldn't want to talk to you? And then just second question is there like a rough guide to if one is able to like remunerate them pay wise, like what would the pay for a day be that might actually be attractive?
Right, yeah.
And realistic, of course.
Should we, I know Helen and Emmanuel, you've got your hands up. Do you want to come in now, or should we deal with the remuneration? I can't say what bit now. Do you want to come in now? Yeah.
So I was going to just say something to Neve's question. Do you want me to give my
go for it.
comment on that? So if it's about questionnaire design, absolutely, as Lisa said, questionnaire design is absolutely critical if you have to use a questionnaire. What I suggest is some other alternative methods to get that conversation style going. Bring them into a webinar room for a conversation, because that way you get more for your buck, and they probably get more as well because they're listening to other farmers. Obviously, it depends on the topic. If your question, Neve, was more about how do you get them to even talk to you on a particular research topic, I've got some ideas on that, and that is very much aligning to a sector challenge they've got. Get the sector body strategies out. What is it that Quality Meat Scotland are saying for livestock, HDB, etc. Whatever sector you're talking to, find out what it is that is said in their strategies, or indeed their business annual reviews, because that way you've done your homework. That's all I'll say on that point.
Yeah, solid advice there, Helen. Go on, Emmanuel.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that one of the key things to know when you're asking farmers questions is the sort of language that you are going in as a researcher. And basically, the farmer might know some of the terminologies that you might use, but they will find it difficult to comprehend. So using as much as clear and non-technical language really works best with farmers. So you are a scientist, we know that, but try as much as possible to make sure that it's in line with the farmers, like language that they will easily understand and comprehend.
Yeah, it's a nice one. But then on the flip side, don't just assume that they won't know. So yeah, Karis, give us a quick hand. Go.
Just off the back of what Emmanuel said, I think that's so important, because when I've been speaking with farmers about like preventative healthcare and preventative medicine, a lot of the general public, you don't really understand what it means. But if you change that into an analogy that they understand, like, do you dip your sheep? And they're like, yes, okay, so that's preventative to prevent scab. Or you ask them what kind of farming they're in, and then adapt that analogy, and then they're a bit more invested in that, and it just really helps like the conversation as well, because they feel like you're taking an interest in what is their kind of background as well. So yeah, it was just to say that it does definitely help.
Yeah, nice one. David, did you want to come in? Well, quick hand.
Yeah, a lot of the questions we've been asked by researchers in the past have ultimately had the answer, well, it depends. And I think there's a real difference between a researcher can have a very will be looking at a very narrow subject, which if you go and ask a farmer, what do you do about aphids, and it's then, well, it depends. If you're heavily down the regen route, you don't have to do anything about them. If you're not, then you've got to spray them. So it's almost like a very holistic answer, which probably is not what a researcher wants to hear. But it's there's a lot of interactions and a lot of things that go on within how a farmer's actually holistically working, which has an effect on a plethora of other things. But actually, we can't provide a perfect answer to a very narrow question.
You've touched on a really important thing here, David, though, about taking a systems approach, which some scientists are doing really well, but it's now we need to filter that into all scientific disciplines. Yeah, Debs, you had your hand up next.
Thanks, Lisa. I thought I'd tackle the thorny subject of payments to farmers, because it's always a something that drives me bonkers. And if I'm writing a bid, I'll put in a hosting fee of around £250. You're going onto the farm, you're taking the farmer off his at least half a day's work, etc. You're all traipsing through the kitchen to use the farm loo, all kinds of things that are both have to be accommodated and can be irritating. If I'm asking the farmer to come off the farm, prepare a presentation and come off the farm for a day, I write in £400 plus travel costs, etc., and I pick up their costs, because how much does it cost to put someone in place on the farm, cover that work? You're expecting a 25% or 20% of that working week when you're bringing somebody away. So, and I feel that if we're not realistic about how much we're asking farmers to do and how much would we go and leave and go and work for, then we're not going to get that quality import from the farmers. And I think when they say, oh, in this project it's not ethical to pay the farmers, then you need to find a different way of doing it in that case, because I just totally find it astonishing.
Yeah, and really nice practical levels there, Debs, because I think people who, it's like how long is a piece of string. Andrew, did you want to come in on that one, or have you got another question?
It's not a question, it's a follow-up to what David was saying. When a farmer responds, it depends. I think in your research planning, the adaptive programming is really important here, because if you come up with a situation that you hadn't anticipated, you need to be able to adapt what you're trying to achieve. And if you go in too rigid, then you have a problem. Now, it does depend to some extent on your funding as to whether they are really tight in what they're asking for, or whether they give you that flexibility.
Yeah, good point about the funding there. Go on, Carol.
We certainly at the Institute, because we're a lot of our funding comes from Scottish Government and through Scottish Government, we had a real issue for a long time about, is it ethical to bribe farmers to come to workshops? That's beginning to change now, when we are able to pay for their time. There was something else I was going to say, it's just gone right out of my head. So I shall just, something to do with language, I think. Yeah, so I've just very quickly, I've written in the chat that I always assume ignorance. Because if you go to a farmer and go, well, actually, I don't know anything like you do about what you're doing, then, it gives them the upper hand, I think, a little bit. So that's how it seems to work for me anyway. So,
and that's good. Addressing the power imbalance is quite important. It's something that I unintentionally did in my PhD, where I didn't know anything there was to know about grass. It was an antibiotic project. We talked about grass loads, and of course it's linked. Nutrition, feed for the animals, but actually being the person who didn't know about grass, even though I was the vet in these groups, was brilliant, because the farmers had the upper hand, they were leading the knowledge. To put yourself in that position is very useful. So the remuneration one is really difficult, and there's lots of debates about this, and ultimately it will come down to what your funding pot allows, your ethics committee allows. But I think, Debs, you make a very salient point here, which I think more funders are recognising. If you're going to get transdisciplinary, multi-actor, again, terrible lingo, but people from different backgrounds doing different jobs working together, then you need to encourage, pay for their time. If you got vets into a role, or you got policymakers, you'd be a paid role for that. So I think there is a good case for paying for farm time. David, would you take part in something, in a research project where you weren't paid?
Yes, and yes, we have, but it has to be something almost that we have instigated. I think that's the important thing. If one of the big drawbacks of being an innovator in regen agriculture was we had nobody that was going to help us. Our usual chemical companies, breakfast meetings, and all the other manufacturers and machinery and stuff like that, had no interest in us using less of their products. So it was very much our own research, and actually that was where I first started to link up with Deborah through innovation. No axe to grind with Innovation for Agriculture. They've got no commercial interest. So having them help us and engage with other farmers, we've now got a great group of farmers that are all looking the same way. So, yeah, money isn't the be all and end all, but I think it depends on who's going to see the benefit out of it at the end of the day.
Yeah, spot on. And it's reimbursement could be non-financial, couldn't it? If it gets value to your business or your work-life balance or your, the greater good for the sector, whatever it might be. Yeah, brilliant. We've got time for one more question for our audience before we move on to a little bit of the next activity. Any burning questions? I think I'm going to deal with some of the hard to reach, stuff in a second. Was question, well, actually something outside. Oh yeah, so Sophie, I think you might have just answered that one, sorry. Do other sectors pay professionals to attend research discussions? Oh, actually we should turn this one to our medical professionals in the audience. Do other sectors pay professionals to attend research discussions? So, I mean, I know vets will get paid, they demand it. I don't know about nurses, doctors.
Depends if you're NHS or private. If you're private, then probably yes. If you're public, it would be deemed probably unethical and you wouldn't be allowed to do it. So yeah, it would be a conflict of interest. We probably wouldn't be allowed to do it.
Ah, yes, because you're getting paid twice, effectively. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a bit like EU projects, isn't it, Debs, where farmers can't necessarily get paid because they're already getting subsidy because of the European thing. But yeah, okay, brilliant. Well, again, that virtual claps to our speakers. Thank you so much for your insights. Super practical, super relevant, super helpful. Any more questions for them, please carry on the chat discussions. Just Emmanuel and I have just got 5-10 minutes stuff we want to share from trying to wrap up these practical tips of engaging farms and growers and projects, and then we've got a bit of an activity for you to do. I just need to share my slide again. Okay, it's not make break time, ignore that. Okay, so this is a bit of a reminder from the last workshop, or maybe it's the first time you've seen it, but we talked about these top tips when co-designing projects. So practical things you can do in that very early stage when you're trying to understand what the challenges are, create those research questions and study designs. So, but it overlaps really nicely with top tips for engaging people, let's just say. So seeking out people early on. So we talked about going to shows, speaking with Innovation for Agriculture, SAOS, and Andrew, I'm sure, will be more than happy to help. And working with those gatekeepers to build trust, which I'll come on to in a bit more detail in a second. We talk about asking questions, but I think even before then is the listening. Listening to those impacted or interested in your work. Last time we talked about that stakeholder grid of power versus influence. Was it interest versus influence? And trying to, engage more with those who are maybe more impacted and interested in your work than those who are just interested. Never assuming knowledge, asking those questions, embracing the mess. Now, this is actually, until you do these kind of approaches and build these projects in, they can be very hectic. They can be like nothing happening because no one ever gets back to you, or it's a long time of year, and then boom, you have to talk to hundreds of people all at once, travel around the country, really stressful. The timelines can be a right mess. So it's preparing you for that mess. It's not nice and regular, but you can alleviate some of that stress by planning accordingly and predicting when things might get busy, building in that leeway to projects, which funders are getting a little bit better at allowing. And then expecting conflict. And I say conflict in the nice sense of the word. Farmers have different interests to researchers. Sometimes it overlaps, but different daily activities, different value systems. For instance, if you were working on a project where you're really against animal agriculture, but you're working with people that work in animal agriculture, you're going to have conflict in value systems. But so managing that and learning from each other with that empathy is really, really key there. That helps with the rapport. So we talked about that last time and the value of gatekeepers to reaching these communities that you might not know very well. And we'll connect you up with these because we want this program to not just be like a teaching session. We want to be able to help you actively do these kinds of projects and pieces of work. So this was something I put together based on people I've talked to in the last week or so. Horrendously skewed, but just to give you a flavour of the sort of organisations out there. So Emmanuel and I and Deb, Helen, Andrew, we've been working in these fields for long periods of time. We actually, when we think about it, we know quite a lot of people, which is very useful for you guys. So it could be you look at national organisations that are really well connected over the whole country. So for people like NFU and AHDB, you might really want to work with those that are really like independent and free to do their own thing, or you might want a bit more of an angle, like a lobby group or a systems-based approach, like Pasture for Life. They've got a thing, they really care about pasture-fed animals. You might want to go for devolved nation involvement. And I've really encouraged that. Funders love that sort of thing as well, where you recognise the differences between nations and cultures. You might want to go even more regionally specific, go for those ag societies, sector specific. There's loads of associations and societies for particular species and particularly in the animal world. And you might want to go a bit more, researcher networks rather than just farming networks. You can bridge those gaps. There's loads of people we can connect you up with. That's one of the first steps. And thinking about what your research, who's your research is going to be relevant to. Like, why should they care? So this brings us on to this thing we made called the Farmer Action Engagement Ring. Now this echoes very much what we've heard today, but I'm going to bring us from an academic perspective because I kind of came up with a lot of this from my PhD and have been implementing it and practicing it whilst working at Innovation for Agriculture and since. And it transcends a lot of working with communities. It's not just a farming thing necessarily, but we've tailored it for the farming community. So you can see they're colour coded. So we've got this stuff in sort of purple, which is more about the communication skills, like what you communicate, how you communicate. And then we've got this sort of orange stuff, which is more about the value proposition. Why should farmers and growers take part in your study or help you with research, take part in research? That's not the day jobs. How can you make that more attractive? Then we've got the blue stuff, which is more time, when and where. And then the green is this kind of the relevance. This has got to be on the farmers and growers' radar, otherwise they're not going to be interested. So we talked about sometimes you plateau with the number of participants and people you involve. Maybe the topic isn't on their radar. Maybe it is a communication thing. Maybe it is a time thing. So with farmer-led, I talk about, again, the Farmer Action Group project, but I was quite shocked actually how interested dairy farmers were in antibiotic use and reducing antibiotic use. And it turns out that was because it was impending regulatory requirement. So dairy farmers were being hinted at by their retailer contracts, their processor contracts, that you need to do something about your antibiotic use. And it wasn't coming from the vets. So suddenly they were like, right, we need to do something about this. So it wasn't just they were interested in being in a discussion group or out the goodness of their heart, taking part in a research project. It was because they saw the relevance and the need. So that's this coming from a farmer-led desire. Emmanuel, you had some interesting, go on, go for it.
Yeah, I was about to say, with a recent study that I conducted together with Andrew, we were trying to identify farmer preferences for macadamia varieties and what is currently, what commercial companies are wanting is different to what farmers are wanting. So this is something that when you are thinking about farmer-led innovations, you need to think about. So, for example, in Ghana now, the farmers have been working with biodiversity, where biodiversity has been looking at drought resistance of potatoes, but the farmers won't test because they want that test whenever they're eating potatoes. So this is where, when you're coming in as a researcher, you need to think about what is it that the local communities will want. So is it, for example, that we bring in a drought-resistant variety that will not be adopted by the farmers? Or when we're thinking of breeding, do we consider also the test when breeding it? Because it's one thing breeding a variety that is drought-resistant. is another thing that farmers will use it. So that is actually really, really important when you're considering farmer-led innovation. So it's all about listening to the farmers and valuing what they really want. It's sometimes difficult because you already have that motive, like this is what I want to do. This is what I've identified as the problem or the challenge. But you will realize that at times it's not the challenge that the farmers are really worried about. It's a different thing.
Yeah, brilliantly said, Emmanuel. And it's being accepting that you may have to change tact, which is why we kept banging on in the last one about doing these sort of approaches early doors. Like once your project's already up and running, so hard to change things. Sometimes that flexibility is built into some projects, but getting started early doors can really help be like, oh, right, okay, I was totally on the wrong tact here, let's change. Which goes to this next one, open dialogue. When starting projects, we often do much more, and I think it's a question in the chat about face-to-face stuff, reaching out to people, hearing about where they're at, what they think of some proposals beforehand. So open dialogue, questioning, trying to understand the issue from the ground up. Deb's my favourite, bottom up. And then this brings us to the value proposition here. So we had some questions about sometimes you get the same people involved, you get saturation of the same groups of farmers, but peer-to-peer can be, and I think, David, you mentioned this about farmer groups, but like adding that into your projects as an added benefit, being like, let's get you all the farmers together in part of our projects together and share knowledge, use that as part of the process. And then there's so much benefit, social well-being, technical benefit from those kinds of approaches, and you also learn from it as well. Go on, Emmanuel.
Yeah, and to echo again what you just said, Lisa, peer-to-peer is one of those that recently has been like, there's a lot of buzz of peer-to-peer learning, and it's quite important because when you bring in farmers, either they're daily or arable farmers, when you bring them together, they start to speak with each other and they start learning from each other. And it is that particular moment in time when you realize that you might have been thinking this on that side while farmers are thinking it on the other side. And that's where now you start to even refine some of the questions you had, because you have had these farmers together and they're talking. So you can have farmers walk, let's say, for example, on a farm where they would just basically be talking of what they're observing, and you are also there listening and learning from their knowledge. So I would say that's one of the key things that when you're thinking of farmer-led innovations, that needs to be like sorted in, because one, the farm where the farmers are working in, it's sort of a safe space. They're used to that particular space. So knowing what sort of space do you want to have the farmers is also really important, because that's when they'll become more open to speak to you and also air out their views on what you're planning to do.
Yeah, and I think, Helen, you mentioned like buying groups, and I hadn't really come across buying groups until doing this peer-to-peer approach, and met so many different people through the buying groups that would not have engaged with research. But and David, I think you mentioned it, like farmers asking their farming friends or colleagues, actually, you'd be really interested in this, rather than me trying to like cold call or cold email. Is a really good one. I've also just seen Helen, you go for it.
Yeah, that's interesting about the buying group. So the co-ops like TARF, in terms of agricultural inputs, selling them to their farmer members, they also get involved in delivery of training to either the apprenticeship schemes that are going on or to co-ops. So again, it's another way in which they engage with their members in terms of training, and maybe that's something to think about in this community as well, in terms of engaging even through the buyer groups.
Yeah, really good point.
Lisa, there's a question by Myra that's saying, how can you engage with farmers in social science and policy research? So this is like different, like, let's say, for example, we have trials, we have all those experiments, but how do you approach farmers if you have a social science or policy research question?
Goes back to the gatekeepers, talking to people that you're already in with these circles and communities, It depends what you're, again, it depends. Because if you're trying to find something, like trying to investigate something that's just not on the certain farming group's radar, you're going to struggle. It might be the timing, it might be the topic, it might be the framing, but that's like, you're going to have some serious self-reflection about that. We took this is the next one on the site, actually, making it practical, like tweaking it so it's actually relevant and practical, going to pubs, going to farms, to like talk to people about it. It's got to be valuable, not extractive. I love the final blue ones. I'm just really conscious of the time, so I'm just whizzing past. Is about the timelines. So not parachuting in and parachuting out, never to be seen again. Keep those relationships alive. Not extractive. We'll keep banging on about this. Keep in touch. Like I'll phone, WhatsApp, meet up with farms I've worked with years and years ago to keep that relationship alive because I value it. And there's so much more that you can do. I mean, that's kind of like treating you like friends, which is probably not the right appropriate thing to say, but and follow-up's another good one. I think someone who worked for DEFRA in the last workshop was like, yeah, we got to get better at that. So, you know, once you found your results, sharing your results. And that can be really good through the gatekeepers as well. You could offer, you know, to share findings with your gatekeepers in a bit of a, you know, what can you do as a researcher for the people that helped you?
I mean, I just also wanted to echo on the use of technology to engage with farmers. Farmers are people that are really curious about things. And if you give them, if you provide, let's say, for example, if you have a WhatsApp group, you'll be surprised at how much data you can collect through pictures they're taking in their farm. And you realize that I'm collecting data because I have created this safe space and farmers that keep on asking you questions. And through those particular questions, you are engaging. So you're basically getting feedback, but also you're feed forwarding it to whatever research that you're conducting. So it's one of those things that if you have time creating a WhatsApp group or a LinkedIn group or whatever social media group you have, you find out that you might even start collecting some data, like even, for example, the social science data. Farmers will be explaining, writing things to you on how they feel or what they think is working, why is it not working, and in that particular way you are engaging and they know that you are there because they can see you and you are responding. So you're bringing in the value, the trust, but also knowing that there's somebody who is there listening, not as like parachuting in, parachuting out.
Yeah. I'm going to attempt to answer some of these questions on the chat in a second, but I've got a little activity for you to do now in the last 5-10 minutes. So I've just shared a link, a plymouth.ac.uk link that will take you to essentially a checklist, an infographic checklist of practical considerations to think about when starting out in these more co-design participatory projects. And I want you to pick one of those questions that resonates with you. And then we'll come back together in a few minutes to share how you are going to adapt or do something differently with your work based on that. Okay. So make sure you can get the link. It should take you to an infographic unless I've shared the wrong link. Oh, yeah, it does. Great. To give you a few minutes to just pick some of those. And these are like prompts to kind of think, oh, I haven't actually thought about that. Or maybe I should do this differently. So pick one of those and then we'll come back together and share. Oh, yes, there are some questions I'll try and answer.
Lisa, really quickly, at the risk of sounding daft, is the infographic like a green background with some trees and people and a path on it?
Excellent. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay,
which probably helps if I shared my screen. But yeah, that's the one. Right, so hopefully you've had a chance to have a little look at this. There's a lot of questions on there. New snapshot. Has anyone picked one out already and thought, yeah, that really resonated with me and I'm going to do something different as a result? God, Tracy, yes.
Is anyone excluded? I think is a really interesting question because, you know, thinking about Adopt and it being led by the farmer, and then the sort of size of group of people that you want to work with, and that balance between being, you know, manageable, but are you excluding someone that's, you know, really vital to it? So thinking, instead of thinking about, you know, jumping on who's involved, thinking actually, am I excluding somebody that I shouldn't be?
Yeah, I'm glad you chose that one. Yeah. Whose voice we're not listening to and including. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Sophie.
So the one for me is what legacy has been left for those involved. And I'm sort of taking this from when I was doing my master's project. I worked with a grower, and I didn't really have the headspace or the time to really consider kind of what the project would look like for them once I'd sort of finished my master's and moved on to other things. So that's definitely something that I'm going to take forward, sort of thinking about the post-project life cycle, whatever we're doing together.
Yeah, legacy and impact. Yeah. Really good one. Peter.
Yeah, there's one in knowledge about benefits of participating. I think it's also very important to make clear, you know, what's in it for the participants, because sometimes it seems that, you know, people, academics coming, sort of drawing in all this knowledge and then sort of leaving and they don't really hear very much about it anymore. So I think it's very good to make clear what's in it for the farmer or the participant in general.
Yeah, big point. I always say if you can make your project an action research project rather than just an observation or an experiment, then there's already derived implicit benefit. Who's next? Carol, over to you.
Sorry, I keep butting in, don't I? Yeah, I think the inclusivity thing is really quite difficult because you can't necessarily get hold of the people that you want to get hold of because they don't want to be included. And also trying to get women involved is difficult because quite often it's the farmer that goes to the meetings and the wife's at home looking after the kids. So we try very hard, if we're doing workshops or anything, to sort of offer childcare, remuneration for childcare. The other thing, just quickly, I think I'm really lucky working in an institute. We've got an ethics committee, and every single one of the points on that has to be checked off before ours goes through the ethics. So we can't do anything until that's done. So that helps us a lot. We don't have to think too much. It's we just have to make sure we cover those points, but we've got a checklist.
Yeah, that's good. And trying to get more ethics boards to think about these things, because now there's all this transdisciplinary funding and stuff. I don't think some institutions are really equipped necessarily to think of those ethical considerations. Yeah. Do any of our speakers want to come in to anything they've gone? Kevin, you go first. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. Just following on from some of those points, I'm very aware that my research, almost all the people are male and 50 plus, and I've actively tried to get younger people and females involved as well, but it's a bit of a struggle actually.
Yeah, nice, honest. Yes.
I could say something here because it's one of my removing barriers for participation. So I run a few women's events and I get shot down in flames occasionally about why do we need something specific, and I run them in the school holidays with a farm school or a creche, and there's no school run to go to, and sometimes in August when everyone's getting under everybody's feet. So I've got a Women's Day going out at the end of August, and I'm hoping it will be as good as the previous one, engaging women in those conversations and giving them the real opportunity to put that forward and get together and have those conversations as well. So I just couldn't resist saying that. Sorry, it was just
no, brilliant, Deb. Yeah, excellent. That's a timing thing. You've particularly looked at timing for that group that you're trying to reach. Andrew, over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on what Peter was saying about researchers parachuting in and then extracting. One of the things that we're finding in Malawi that is a real disconnect between the agricultural research, the extension, and the farmers. And we're trying to get to a place where we're starting to think about how we can actually drive the research from the farmers' needs perspective rather than the researchers' interest, and the power imbalance between the research community who have all the tools and the latest technologies and all the rest of it, all the interesting stuff that they want to try and test and what have you, as opposed to the farmers who are supposed to be at the receiving end of useful research to them. And there are disconnects that we need to be really conscious of.
Yeah, really good point, Andrew. Helen?
Just pick excellent points by Deborah. I think she's left. I was just going to comment on something that Carol said. You often don't know who to speak to and how to reach them. And I have that frustration as well when I reach out and try and do that. But honestly, there's always a way around getting in touch with somebody. It's like herding cats sometimes, and we're quite good at that at SEOS. One of the things to that, though, is sort of perseverance, but also use your local areas, contacts, farming associations, etc. there, because they will get you to that right person, or communities like this. We always know somebody that will reach to the person that you want. But be clear. It comes back to communication. Be clear. Why is it that you want to talk to them? Whether, so make that clear. And that's where we find these very short 30-second videos are great. It's a way to open doors. So use gatekeepers. And that reminds me, I'm still trying to find somebody at Diageo that's ignored me for 3 emails and 2 phone calls. I really want to talk to that person. They were fabulous. I won't give up.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, keep perseverance and finding the right people. Totally. Now, I'm conscious we are in the last few minutes, so I'm going to ask you to make use of the chat, because there's many of us here, to just share maybe what some of your takeaway messages from today have been, whatever what you've learned, how it's made you feel, positive and negative, remaining questions you may have, because we are really keen to try and respond to these where we can, but also capture the kind of ongoing influence this programme is having on you guys. Now, not only that funding requirement, but we're also quite keen to be like, well, what's the point of doing this if it's not going to help make a difference? So one little plug we've got towards the end, as you think about your takeaways, is we're really looking for some ambassadors, and I still don't know if that's quite the right word, actually, but some real advocates for the programme who would go a little bit further to take, in participation, try and capture their journey, like whether it's through diaries, testimonials, like just keep capturing your journey through the Bridging Fields programme, what you've learned, how it's made you feel, what you're going to be doing differently, and the outcomes of that, whether it's new relationships, new projects, new realizations. And we're going to reward these kind of ambassadors, advocates, with free tickets to shows and events of your choice next year. So we only need a handful of volunteers, but we would hope that you'd participate in either one of the residencies, maybe even do some of the mentorship, take part in the workshops, and then we can really capture your journey and show what you've done, really, showcase. So if you are interested in that, you can have hang on a bit longer at the end of the call or stay online, or just let us know in the chat, along with your kind of how this has made you feel and think. And we'll be in touch. Oh, also, just before I go, make sure you are on the register your interest form. Let me just share the link again, because I know we've had loads of links. And if you can't remember, just sign up again and we'll delete duplications. Probably recognise it when you. So this is the way to stay in touch with us, like hear what's happening when. We don't bombard you with messages, but actually I think probably we need to communicate with you more. See,
and the LinkedIn group, Lisa.
Oh yeah, the LinkedIn group. Oh gosh. How do I share that? Gosh, LinkedIn. Someone else asked about social media, actually. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I think it depends, which is now my new tagline. Groups. Groups. Link. There we go. That's the LinkedIn group, but we'll culminate all this in a nice little message that you can save in your importance file. Yeah, so share your sort of take homes, takeaways, and if you're keen to take that sort of ambassador role, you go through this journey, particularly the academics on the call, then please let us know, because we'd really love to support you and document the impact that this programme has. But thank you so much for coming, and if you have to drop off quickly and get to your next thing, absolutely fine. It's been a joy to have you all here. Thank you again for our speakers as well. We've provided some really nice different angles and practical ways to do this. So thank you.
Thank you. Another excellent workshop. Thank you very much, guys.
Oh, bro, thanks, Luke.
Bye.
Bye all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Andrew.
Sorry, Lisa. What were you saying about the ambassadors? I didn't catch the whole thing about that. What sort of person are you looking for?
Unfortunately, primarily academics, because that's our target audience from the funders. So, it's people that we can really capture the impact of the training with. So diarying, feelings, thoughts, learnings, testimonials, following the impact, whether new relationships with farmers and growers have happened and new projects secured, that sort of thing.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm not academic as such.
Because you work for Earthwatch, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, we do have a farming with nature.
I was
program.
about to say that
Yeah.
Kinder has a project on farming.
Well,
Yeah,
actually, probably would be fine. I'm sure the funders are pretty
Yeah.
relaxed. So yeah, if you're keen to be an ambassador, and we're pretty open to how you kind of capture your impact. You might want to do it all videos, you might want to do it all written, you might want to do it at particular times. But we can, if you're keen, we'll make a note and then we can hold a catch up with you about what that might look like.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Yeah. I mean, in terms of time or something, it shouldn't take too long, right? Or no?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Diary entries really quick, and then we can do, if you want to do video or spoken things, we can do that at events.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Yeah. No, let's just
I'll
keep in
make a note.
touch. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna
Thank you.
run. See you later. Bye.
See ya. Oh, hi, Runak. We've met on email, haven't we?
Hi, yeah.
Hello. Thanks for joining.
Oh, it's really interesting.
Lisa, I'm gonna have to dash. Casey's waiting for me, but nice meeting you, Runak.
Thanks,
Lisa will update me on everything. So cheers.
No choice.
See you, Manuel. Hi,
hello.
Sorry, joining a bit late. I had things to do with my son, but yeah.
Yeah,
It was really
well,
interesting. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. It was quite action packed. We're always trying to wedge as much in as possible. But yeah, would you be interested in being an advocate ambassador? I don't know what the best word is, but
Yeah, I mean, so I'm doing a couple of bits, obviously with the AFN, but also just did a workshop on just transitions and the farming groups there. I think I'm in that space now where I've engaged a bit with farmers, a bit more from the Southwest because of where I'm based. Trying to build something a bit wider. So I mean, I'd love to, because as of now I'm struggling between NFU and the non-NFU farmers. As they say, the big ones and the clusters. But I tend to engage with the clusters. Sometimes there's a way to get to them, sometimes there isn't, because many times I've had emails bouncing back saying it doesn't exist anymore. So the cluster leads. But yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, because I think that's something I probably don't have a chance to caveat with the gatekeepers or the known groups and bodies, is that they can be biased. They can be a very small subgroup of the community that you might be trying to reach. So it's always beneficial to have like multiple gatekeepers and multiple networks. Because NFU is a classic one. They have their, they have their line, their angle, which is valid and important. But if you're trying to increase the diversity of your interactions, then yeah, so we'll help you as much as you need it in what areas as a sort of ambassador. But what we just need from you is the journey that you've gone through and the impact it's had, essentially, and trying to capture that.
Yeah, or how long are you looking?
Yeah.
So what's the
we basically need to wrap it all up by October next year.
Okay, that's good. Actually, really good, because I'm putting together an FLF application, and a lot of the last couple of years has been building to it. So there's a lot that, potentially in terms of journey would be interesting to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the involvement of different partners in the bid and how that'd be perfect.
Yeah, trying to get I still don't have the answer to it. I'm still struggling with the balance between how do we get NFU involved and then also the clusters involved without having a healthy debate.
You're coming to the residency in August, aren't you?
Yes, I filled out the form. Yeah, so
perfect. Yeah, so one of the guys who's speaking on the first day, he's really experienced setting up the Cotswold cluster, which is one of the biggest ones, I think. So he'll be a really good link to understand that engagement. But yeah, we'll have a proper chat about what you're doing, how the program can help you, and then what we kind of want from impact capturing. But yeah, I hope you found it useful. And then the recording, oh god, I am still recording. Whoops. Let's stop that. We'll delete this bit from the end of it anyway.